Hi, this is Liz from Costumecrazed, and today I'm going to make a quick Santa's helper or Mrs. Claus outfit. This is the time of year where you might be called upon to help out, or you've got a community event, or you have a child who needs to be a helper, and costumes can be expensive, and if you have to order them, you may not be able to get them quickly. But I'm going to show you how you can make one relatively easy without a whole lot of effort. What I'm going to use for my base for the skirt is a tree skirt. The nice thing about a tree skirt is that it comes already finished in a nice circle shape. The biggest drawback to it is that it's designed to go around a tree and not around a waist. So what I'm going to need to do is to figure out how big my waist should be, and to cut this circular hole more evenly. This is a fairly large tree skirt, so you can see if I put it on my model, this is going to be a fairly long skirt. So you're also going to want to pay attention to how long you want your finished skirt to be. You can use all kinds of different tree skirts. This happens to be one that is red fur and has a nice green border on the bottom. I'm going to use some black elastic to go around the waist of my skirt. You could use fabric, you could use a little bit of elastic, make a casing, you could use bias tape. If you like the idea of black elastic, so it's kind of going to look like a belt, and you don't happen to have a big roll like I do, you may want to go to a thrift store, and a lot of times you can find wide belts with elastic on them, and even if one isn't enough, if you put two of them together, that should be great plenty to make your waistband. This is the shirt that I am going to use. It's just basically red. I wanted just basically something that would match with the red of my tree skirt. This is a little bit big for the size that I'm going to make, so I'm going to make some sizing adjustments on here. I'm probably first going to take some fabric out of the back. That's going to pull my shoulders up, and it's going to make it fit better. And then probably I'm thinking I'm going to just make some quick darts across the front, which is going to give it a nice fitted look there. You're no doubt going to want some white trim to go on your Santa's helper outfit. There's lots of different things that you can use. Here I have some marabou feathers. This is a quick and easy thing to use. You can either sew these on, or you can just pin them on. That makes it easier to remove for washing. I also have some white tinsel, which is a little bit sparkly, and I kind of like the look of this. Again, you can pin this on, or you can sew it on. You probably need to hand wash if you did that, but that is an option. Another thing that you could use are wired ruffles. These are ruffles that I cut off of a wedding dress at some point, and again, these give a nice look. This was a hat I made for a dance thing last year. A nice look for that. Another option, depending on what resources you have in your community, if you get desperate, you might go look for some red stockings at the store. This would kind of be an expensive way to get trim, but if you have to drive a long distance to get fur, you can probably find this locally. You can obviously take the white trim off and use it to trim your outfit, put it around the sleeves. I also think that if you flipped your stocking upside down and did a little reshaping, you might be able to use this as a sleeve for doing something creative like that. These are just some ideas, and we'll see what our outfit ends up looking like. So I began working on the top by turning it inside out. I could do the pleats with it right side out, but then I have to flip them all to the other side. So I turned it inside out, and I began by putting a pleat down the center back. And then I looked at the seams in the jacket itself, and I took a little bit of fabric out of each of these, tapering it up to the sleeve, because I really don't want to mess with the arm's eye. The front was a little bit difficult, just because this was sort of a straight jacket, so you can see this is a little different shape under here. I pulled a little bit of fabric out here, and then I'm going to make some center front darts, so I'm going to sew these up, and we'll see what it looks like. Have the top with all the seams done up. The one thing I would do differently if I was doing this again is I should have measured from the center front over to these pleats. This one is over just a little bit far, but you can see how nicely shaped this is. It almost ended up with kind of a bat wing look here. Little bit of tucks back here in the shoulder. If that really disturbed you, you could set these seams in a little bit. But for my purpose here, I'm okay with this. This is just the costume. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to run some zigzag stitching along here, and then I'm going to trim out some of this extra fabric.
I decided to use the garland for my trim. At first I tried to sew it by machine, first on top and then on the side with a large zigzag. This was less than successful as it squished the garland and I broke a needle. I ended up sewing it on by hand, which actually went very quick. The key is using some larger stitches and then sewing from the back to try to keep the thread from tangling. I think this turned out really cute and I love the way it looks.
Next up is the skirt. So I've laid the tree skirt out so that we can see the center hole. I just put this piece of yellow paper behind it so that it makes it a little bit easier for you to see. If I measure across the center, our circle is about 4 inches, which means that the radius, which is from the edge to the center, is 2 inches. My dress form has a 25-inch waist, and I went online and I found a circumference calculator, because you'll remember the circumference is the measurement around the edge of the circle. And for a 25-inch circumference, we actually only need a 4-inch radius. So that would mean cutting this hole basically just about 2 inches bigger. What that shows you is that it is very easy to cut too much off of a circle. So be very careful when you're working with circles, tablecloths, tree skirts, anything that's circular like this, that you don't cut off too much, because who would have thought that you'd only need 4 inches to get a 25-inch circumference? If I cut another 2 inches off this tree skirt, that is going to give me roughly a skirt length of about 25 inches. 25 inches is fairly long, and I also want the skirt to have a little bit of gather up at the top, and so I am going to go ahead and cut it down just a little bit farther, and then I will stretch it onto my elastic. Okay, I've done a few calculations, and I think I'm going to go with cutting down 4 inches from the circle edge up here. That, when I put it into a circumference calculator online, that's going to give me a 37-inch circumference, and if my elastic is about 25 inches long, that's going to give me about 10 inches extra to ease in, which I think should be doable. That's also going to give me a finished length of, give or take, about 20 inches. Might be a little longer than you like, but I think it's going to be okay. So what I'm going to do, since the circle was nice and even up here at the top, I'm just going to make sure that it's laid out nicely, and then I'm going to use my little 6-inch ruler and a Sharpie and measure down 4 inches all around the skirt and mark it with my Sharpie, and this is going to give me a cutting line for my inner circle. There's a special technique for cutting fur. This is especially important if you have a long plush fur, because if you just cut it, you're going to cut off a lot of those long strands of the fur, and it's going to be very obvious. So what you want to do is take your scissors and from the back slide it along the backing and cut underneath the plush part of the fur. You're still going to have a little bit come off, but not nearly as much as if you just take your scissors and cut. I'm going to finish doing this, and then we'll move on to the next step. I want the back to overlap just a little bit, and so I'm just going to go ahead and sew, slightly overlap the back of the tree skirt and sew it up. So I have my piece of elastic that I cut about 1 inch bigger than my waistband. I'm going to fold the edges down and stitch them, and then later I'm going to add some snaps on here. I have marked my waistband in quarters, and this is going to work really well on this skirt because it already has quarter marks because of how it was constructed. This is not going to be the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here. I'm going to top stitch. I'm going to top stitch this elastic onto the fur. So I'm going to start by securing it here where my overlap, where my snaps are going to be. Then right about here where I have this connected, that needs to reach the other end. So what I want to do is I want to put my needle down so that it's going to hold my fabric in place. I'm going to go ahead and mark another quarter on there, and then I'm going to give myself another quarter here, like so. Then I'm going to, and this is where you really need like about 4 more hands. I'm going to have to hold this back here and stretch this elastic to the mark that I have and sew the two things together. Once you get started, it's a little bit easier. Try to make sure to put your needle down. Most sewing machines like to stop with the needle up, which is kind of inconvenient for a project like this. Then again, here I have my quarter mark. Now this is where it's going to start getting easier because I have something back here to grab onto. And so I'm going to grab onto that, pull my elastic, and zigzag it together. This is not going to be the most beautiful thing, but black on black, you're not going to see it. Alright, so once I made it all around, I want to look to make sure that there aren't places like this where all I've done is catch the fur, because that's going to pull out. I also have a place over here where one part is way on the edge and one part it's too far in. So I'm going to take a little bit of this out and restitch it. Overall, it's not too bad. And you can see it looks really good from the right side. So my elastic is sewn on. In order to account for the overlap, I put this one, the top layer, all the way to the edge. And now I'm going to put some snaps on like this. This is only going to give me about a 1/2 inch overlay. If that's all you have, that's fine. But I happen to have some scraps that were left from where I cut off some of those darts we made on the jacket. So I'm going to sew an extra piece in here just to give us a little extra fabric that's going to be behind that placket there. We need to close the waistband somehow, and I could use some Velcro if I wanted to, but I am going to use my cam snap setter. I really love cam snaps. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to use my awl, and I'm going to poke a hole through there. I put the back on, put the snap part on. Clamp it, and that part's ready to go. Then you line up the other side, make a hole where the matching part should go, push it through. Make sure you've got the mate. Put it on there. Squeeze it. And it's closed. I love cam snaps. They are handy. I use them on all kinds of things, and they come in all kinds of colors. So I think they're designed a lot for people who make diapers, but for costuming, for a quick way to close something, I use them on shirts for fast changes. The only thing is that you have to be able to fit your snaps that are pretty much in there, but I love them. So I have left the little circle that I cut out. Now that I have this done, this actually would make a really cute little collar if you didn't want to do a blouse. You just wanted to do something that would go along with your skirt. I'm going to kind of make it into a little hat. So I have some trim that I am going to sew along the edge, and then you'd be able to wear it in your hair.
So the hat was a mess. The full circle was really too much for your head. So I added some bias tape channels and ran some elastic through it. I ended up putting on an extra white ruffle, and this is what I ended up with. It looks okay. It kind of is reminiscent of the mob cap that a Mrs. Santa might wear. The downfall is that it won't stay in your hair without being pinned in, but I guess it's better than nothing.
For my last little bit for this project, I am going to make a belt buckle, and so I have some non-woven metallic fabric stuff and a piece of cardboard, and I am just going to cover that with some hot glue and cover my buckle.
I backed my buckle shape with some black fabric and then made a little prong out of a piece of zip tie.
So my Santa's helper outfit is done. You can see I made the little buckle. It just pins onto the elastic, so if it stretches behind it, it works fine. We have our nice full circle skirt here. It's maybe a little bit long, but it's not bad. It would look super cute if you put a white petticoat underneath of it, like a square dance petticoat. If I were doing this again, I would put the tinsel down just a little bit around the neckline, because it's just a little bit scratchy, but it's really not too bad, and if it bothered you a lot, you could put like a turtleneck on. I really like the way it looks around the sleeves. I'm going to turn this around here for you. You can see here we have our back, we have our snaps here. If we didn't have this little bit of red, there might be a little bit of a gap. You could also put some snaps there to help that stay, or some Velcro to help that stay shut. My hat was probably the least successful part of this project. I ended up putting a casing and some elastic up here at the top, and then a casing and elastic, and then I used a ruffle with some lace that I had already made. This doesn't really want to stay on your head, so you would have to pin it on. Or you could stretch it and put it over a ponytail or something. So again, this was not the most successful part of my project, but, you know, if we put it together, it wouldn't look too bad. Just for fun, I went and got a petticoat. You can see how it changes the look of our skirt. It looks really cute. There, it's under there. This particular petticoat has a topper on it because we used it for a dress that was a little bit longer, but you could also have it where it sticks out the bottom a little bit, and that's really cute. But it does add to the look to have a little bit more fluff under there. I actually kind of like the look of the petticoat sticking out underneath, because then it gives us this white. If anything, I would like there to be a little bit of white trim around the bottom of this petticoat, or the bottom of this skirt. Overall, this actually is kind of a fun Christmas 50s look if you were doing something that was a little bit a 50s themed Christmas party or something. Overall, this was a really fun project. I'm happy with how it turned out, and I hope this gives you some ideas and inspires you on how to make your own Santa's helper outfit. If you'd like more details on this and to see some different perspectives, you can look for this post on my blog at www.costumecrazed.me. Thanks for watching. And if you liked the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.